June 12 carries huge significance for older Nigerians. It was on this date in 1993 that presidential elections were held for the first time since the 1983 military coup. It was an event many observers have described as the most significant in Nigeria's post-independence political history. It is still viewed as the freest, fairest, and most peaceful election ever held in Nigeria. On the day, an estimated 14 million Nigerians, irrespective of ethnic, religious, class, and regional affiliations, in a period when religious acrimony and tension had reached its zenith, defied bad weather to elect their president with the hope of ending 8 years of military dictatorships. The euphoria was short-lived. The results of the election were never released. But unofficial results gathered through the various polling stations by civil society groups across the country indicated broad national support for the presidential candidate of the Social Democratic Party, Chief Mashood Kashimawo Olawale Abiola. Abiola was a businessman, publisher, politician, and aristocrat of the Yoruba Egba clan. He made his fortune through various enterprises, including communication, oil, and gas. He made his first, unsuccessful run at the presidency in 1983. By then, Nigeria had endured a great deal of political upheaval since its 1960 independence. It was a deeply divided nation, riven along ethnic, religious, and regional lines. Political and military power was held by the North. Then came Abiola, a man from the South. He brought a different perspective to the table and was able to connect with people across divides. Come June 12, 1993, he tried for the presidency again. Despite his popularity, and the turnout, the election stalled. The then military head of state, General Ibrahim Babangida, decided to annul the results of the election. He justified the annulment on the grounds that it was necessary to save the nation. He alleged that political activities preceding the election were inimical to peace and stability in Nigeria.
It is true that the presidential election was generally seen to be free, fair, and peaceful. However, there was in fact a huge array of electoral practices virtually in all the states of the Federation before the actual voting.
Some people, however, believe that the military underrated Abiola's popularity. It also did not envisage the level of crisis after the annulment of the election result. The June 12 election and subsequent annulment marked the beginning of a decades-long struggle to see the election result restored and democracy rehabilitated. The annulment of the election result was not taken lightly in the southwestern part of the country. Civil violence in the southwestern states provoked by electoral fraud and political exclusion previously contributed to the breakdown of the First and Second Republics. These ran from 1993 to 1999 when Nigeria had its return to democratic rule. According to political scientist Professor Emmanuel Oho, Southern resentment over Abiola's rebuff also threatened to create fissures within the military. This in turn raised the specter of wider civil conflicts and state collapse. In his official reaction to the annulment, Abiola was quoted as saying, "I might embark on the program of civil disobedience in the country. If those who make the law disobey the law, why should I obey it? There is a limit to the authenticity one could expect from a military ruler who is obviously anxious to hang on to power."
At the National Assembly election, and as a proportion, probably more than I voted in the United States election, presidential election. So that in itself is a massive mandate. And I have 58.9% of the votes. I won in 20 states, and I won the 1/3 of the votes in 28 out of 30 states, and at the Federal Capital Territory of Abuja. There's nothing else.
Abiola's statement threw the country into unprecedented crisis. The Campaign for Democracy spearheaded mass protests by calling for a 5-day nonviolent protest. Protests later turned violent. At least 100 protesters were killed, shot by police. The violence prompted a mounting exodus from the major cities, as southern ethnic groups, most especially the Igbos, fearing a recurrence of the communal purges which had preceded the 1967 Civil War, fled to their home regions. Author B. Onwabius lucidly and graphically described the crisis like this. The annulment of the June 12 presidential election plunged the country into what indisputably is the greatest political crisis in its 33-year life as an independent nation. Never before, except during the murderous confrontation of 1966 to 1970, had the survival of Nigeria as one political entity been in more serious danger. The impasse created was certainly unequaled in the country's history. Civil society groups pushed for the redemocratization of Nigeria. Their first call was that the mandate be returned to Abiola. During this period there was a great deal of fear and insecurity in the country. But as Ebenezer Babatope in his book The Abacha Regime and the June 12 Crisis,
it is true that the presidential election was generally seen to be free, fair and peaceful. However, there was in fact a huge array of electoral practices virtually in all the states of the Federation before the actual voting began.
It is incredible. In view of all this, I find the conclusion unfortunate but inescapable that the federal military government is guilty of bad faith, pure and simple. No one has accused me of any offense against any known electoral law or regulation. The people of this country went to polls on Saturday, June 12, 1993, and without let or hindrance chose me as their president. Didn't they?
Rule. During most of this time, Abiola was in jail. In 1994 he declared himself Nigeria's lawful president after returning from a trip to win the support of the international community for his mandate. After declaring himself president he was accused of treason and arrested on the orders of then military President General Sani Abacha, who sent 200 police vehicles to bring him into custody. Abiola died in suspicious circumstances on the day that he was due to be released, July 7, 1998. However, 25 years later, precisely June 8, 2018, President Muhammadu Buhari took a bold step by proposing to recognize June 12 as the nation's Democracy Day as against the May 29 date that had been celebrated since 1999. Buhari's decision to mark June 12 as Democracy Day should be viewed as an attempt to placate the southwestern Nigerian state, which has always set aside the day to remember Abiola's stolen mandate and an annulled election that many still view as the country's freest and fairest in the history of Nigeria and democracy. Happy Democracy Day! Kindly subscribe, like and share this video.